We do have one more. We have one more topic
We
today.
do?
Yep, we do. One last topic that we need to talk about here as a main topic. Chris, whatever could the fifth and final main topic be today?
The one you've been waiting for, y'all. Braedyn Smith writes, "Hey, John. With the success of Spider-Man in the MCU and the success of Venom, things looked great for Spidey in the MCU. I guess not. Deadline is reporting that Disney broke things off. People were concerned that Sony wouldn't extend the deal, but no one talked about how Disney might be the problem. What are your thoughts? Thanks. Get ready for the rant, you guys. Prepare yourselves."
You know, what is funny here, is that over the past couple of years, the thing everybody's been worried about, the thing that everybody was questioning, is will Sony kill the deal when it's done? Will Sony pull Spider-Man out of the MCU? Will Sony be the ones to cut the cord and pull the trigger and do that? And I've been saying, listen, I think Sony's very happy. You know, I think before Venom came out, I said, if Venom's a success, then that will convince Sony that they are perfectly good where they are, making their own movies without Spider-Man and then making money on Spider-Man being in the MCU. They will be happy. I'm telling you, if Venom is a success, Sony will be happy and Sony won't pull Spider-Man. But what they asked in the question is absolutely correct. None of us stopped to ask, what will Disney do? Because we've all just been assuming, you've been assuming, I've been assuming that the only question mark was Sony. Disney is clearly happy. Disney negotiated a deal a couple of years ago that they were thrilled with. They got to get production fees from Sony for doing Spider-Man movies. They got 5% of the box office, scot-free money.
First dollar gross.
First dollar gross too, complete scot-free money right there. They got 100% of all the merchandising rights, which they have made a fortune on. And as the cherry on top of it all, they got the rights to have Spider-Man in their MCU movies that they didn't need to give $1 to Sony for. They got to keep all the money. Disney had a sweetheart of a deal, and they knew it. They negotiated it. You knew it, I knew it, and that's why none of us ever questioned. We never questioned about whether Disney will want out of the deal. We've only questioned about whether Sony will pull themselves out of the deal. So that's where things have been. And then yesterday, the bomb drops. The bomb comes out of nowhere, and it drops, and it shook the movie fan world. Basically, this deal that Disney was so happy with and thought that they negotiated was fair deal, was very beneficial to them. They now came back to Sony, apparently, according to a report in Deadline. Everything we're going to be talking about here comes from that report out of Deadline. And then we're going to talk about Sony's response here in a second as well. Sony came out. They still wanted to keep 100% of the merchandising rights. Understandably, why would you give that up? Mm-hmm. Disney still wanted to be able to have Spider-Man in the MCU. Of course they do. Of course. Nobody doubts that. But instead of 5%, they wanted a 10 times bump in that to a complete 50-50 split, including co-production rights and co-financing rights, which essentially, if you understand that and look at the underlying things, takes Sony's controlling interest of their number one franchise away from them, and according to the report in Deadline, would have given Disney the option for co-finance as well, not just the Spider-Man movies, but the other movies Sony wanted to do too, including Venom, Morbius, Kraven, all that kind of stuff. So basically, the way I kind of set it up in something I put up on Twitter was this. You know, imagine you are a dude and you negotiate with a company to work with a company, and you negotiate for, I don't know, $500 a month to do a couple things for your company, for this company, right? You negotiate it. You feel good about it. You think it's a good deal. Okay, now a year or two passes and things are going well. So you go to the company, you say, you know what? I'd like to get a little bit more because things are going well. And the company goes, you know, you're right. Things are going well. You should get a little bit more. What are we thinking? 550? 600? 700? No, I was thinking 5,000. Literally 10 times more. I'm literally thinking 5,000 a month now. You know what the company's going to do? See ya. That's what they're going to say to you, and away out the door you go. Now, one of the things that I always love about doing this show is that Robert quite often has very different opinions than mine, and I am curious to get to them. But But let me say this about this situation here. When I look at how utterly ridiculous the demands Disney is making here, and by the way, you know what? I wasn't going to do this. Let me read this text message I got from a film executive and we all know here. Went back and forth. I asked them about the thoughts on this thing. Listen to this. Fans who are blaming Sony do not understand how the movie business works or what the fuck that they are talking about. Sony giving away 50% of the upside and controlling interest to their biggest franchise is something that no studio or studio executive would ever consider doing. What Disney has done here, and I mentioned this to Rob I said this to you, Rob, just before we started the show today. I said, you know what? As I'm looking at it now, what Disney has basically done here, it is so outrageous that I am left to wonder if they put this altering the deal thing together, knowing full well that no company in their right mind would accept those types of terms, and that Disney intentionally wanted to end the Spider-Man deal. Now, look, I can't for the life of me imagine what their motivation for that would be or why that would be the case. I honestly can't. But the illustration that I gave, I told Chris and Rob before we started the show was, remember that one episode of Seinfeld where Seinfeld actually wanted to break up with his girlfriend, but couldn't think of how to do it without looking like a dick? Well, then Costanza says to him, you know what? Tell her you want to have a threesome with her and her best friend. Then she'll break up with you. Perfect. And that to me feels like what Disney has done here. I feel like that they have put together such an outrage that everybody in the film industry knows that this was a completely unreasonable ask. At this point, this is completely unreasonable. No company would have accepted this. I can't help but, and they're smart, they know this, I can't help but feel there may be a 5% chance that maybe they did this specifically because they wanted Sony to say no. I mean, I don't know about this. And Rob, I want to get your thoughts on this. But before we do, let's get over and get the official statement that came out of Sony. By the way, I'm really impressed by Sony because they could have come out and lashed out and thrown Disney under the bus and done whatever. Instead, they kept it pretty high ground. This is their response. Sony Pictures writes, much of today's news about Spider-Man has been mischaracterized. Recent discussions about Kevin Feige's involvement in the franchise. We are disappointed, but respect Disney's decision to not have him continue as lead producer of our next live-action Spider-Man film. We hope this might change in the future, but understand that the many new responsibilities that Disney has given him, including all their newly added Marvel properties, do not allow time for him to work on IP that they do not own. Kevin is terrific. We are grateful for his help and guidance and appreciate the path that he has helped us on, which we will continue. I will tell you what, everybody knows I'm a big Disney fan. I am a big Disney fan. I am. I'm unabashed about that. I love Disney and their stuff. When they make crap, I'll call them out. Dumbo, Wrinkle in Time, Nutcracker. I'll call out when I think they make crap, but I'm a big Disney fan, and everybody knows this. I am very impressed by by Sony's response, to be honest with you. They totally kept the high ground, said nothing but positive things about Disney. They could have thrown them under the bus. They could have turned this into a fight, and they didn't. But Rob, I got to tell you, as a fan of Disney, as somebody who is often the advocate for Disney and defending, things that Disney says or does until they do really stupid things, I got to tell you, as a fan of Spider-Man, as a fan of the things that they've been doing, as a fan of all this type of stuff, and as a guy who really likes seeing Spider-Man in the MCU, I am incredibly disappointed in Disney. They could have at least been more upfront about it. I'm at a loss here, to be honest with you. I'm at a complete loss. But anyway, Rob, you and I didn't talk about this yesterday. And I wanted to call you so bad. And I just thought, you know what? No, I'm going to save it. So our first conversation about this is on the show. But I wanted to call you so bad last night. But, you're looking at this overall and, how are you seeing it?
Well, first of all, I was totally on Disney's side when this news first broke. I was literally doing my own show live, and somebody sent me a super chat in and said, "Hey, have you heard this new Disney news?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?" I mean, this is for a genre fan. This was like you said, it was like a bomb dropping. So my initial, from what I understood, I thought it was Disney was right because Disney put Spider-Man Civil War, they put Spider-Man in Infinity War and Endgame, which hugely bolsters the visibility of the character, adding to, of course, the billion-dollar grosses for Far From Home. Now, even I thought, okay, you're going to share revenue with the Spider-Man movies, and it's going to be 50-50, even though that was outrageous. I knew that wouldn't fly, but I had read that Sony even went back and said, what about 70-30? And I'm thinking, okay, that makes sense.
Actually, you just raised a good point. I forgot to mention that Sony did indeed go back
Sony
with
goes
several
back
counter
and says 70-30.
offers. Yes, they did.
So I was like, this helps everyone. But you pointed out something to me that I didn't quite understand, that I had to go back and read in that Deadline article. In that Deadline article, which initially reported this, and Deadline, for those who don't know, that's kind of like, it's Variety and Hollywood Reporter, but it is the online entertainment news of choice. It's when it's on Deadline, it's pretty important to look at. Deadline said that Sony revealed that Disney wanted control of all of their Spider-Man movies, all of their offshoot movies, whether it's, I don't think the Morbius movie, it's already in production, but a Craven film or a Sinister Six movie or anything going forward.
Venom 2,
that Disney would control 50% of all of their Spider-Verse. Now, even I, as much as I'm, like you said, a Disney fan, I'm like, that's absurd. That's insane, because what that would be doing is Sony ceding control of their most valuable franchise to another studio, to Disney. They couldn't control their own characters. They made a great deal in 1999. Marvel was going to go bankrupt. They were able to make a sweet deal. The comic book movies universe was very different back then, and that's the deal they made. That's what Sony got. Fox got Daredevil, got the X-Men, but they made that deal. It was a good deal. Now, the fact that Sony allowed Marvel to share Spider-Man, like John pointed out, also a great deal. Now, I even thought sharing revenue on and co-financing Spider-Man movies, just the Spider-Man movies, even at 50% apiece, I was into that. I'm like, okay, I didn't realize they wanted 50% of everything. If you were to do that, as John pointed out, the studio executives who agreed to that deal would be fired the next day. You're losing control of your own franchise. Of course, that's what Disney wanted. They went in and they made a ludicrous offer. A ludicrous offer. Nobody could accept those terms. Nobody. Now, I didn't understand that it wasn't just for the Spider-Man films. So, unfortunately, I think Disney is at fault here. And Disney made demands that they knew, like John pointed out, nobody in their right mind could accept. Now, unfortunately, I don't know where that leaves Spider-Man. I think ultimately, I think cooler heads, at least as far as Spider-Man is going to be concerned, I think they're going to work it out. I think they're going to work it out because that was a very mutually beneficial agreement. You have Spider-Man come out in the MCU movies. I mean, Sony got their character in 3 Marvel films.
That they didn't see a dollar for.
But in terms of bolstering the character and making people love Spider-Man, I mean, remember the last Spider-Man movie that they made with Andrew Garfield, the second Spider-Man film, it made people fall out of love with the character. Disney is doing all the advertising Sony needs for their own property. So Sony, when Venom came out, do you think Venom would have done as well if the MCU didn't exist? Probably not. Even though they had nothing to do with each other, we love superhero movies now, supervillain movies too. And I think there's a synergy there. It's unique in Hollywood. It's never been seen before, but I think they're going to want to continue on with that.
I so hope you're right. And listen, I'm not going to
They'd
go into
be idiots not to.
I heard I had a little bit of an overture from somebody in Disney yesterday that suggested maybe this isn't done yet. Maybe this isn't done yet. I think there are a couple of things that we need to keep in mind here. Guys, including you, Chris, like I had a few people say to me yesterday, because I went on a bit of a Twitter storm on this. And a number of people would say,
I like a twit storm.
That's the opposite.
I was a twitting and a tweeting.
I went on a twit storm. And a couple of people would point out to me and say, but John, with all the success and how well everything's going, what's wrong with Disney wanting a little more? To which I said, there's nothing wrong with wanting a little more, but there's a difference between wanting a little more and 10 times more, plus a shared asking Sony to give up pure controlling interest in their most valuable character. That's not asking for a little more, that's extortion. All right, pure, simple, that's extortion. The other thing that we all got to keep in mind here too is this. Out of all the live action Spider-Man movies that Sony made, all of them made between $700 million and $900 million. They all fell within that $700 to $900 million range. It's not like Sony's Spider-Man movies were making $300 million, $410 million, blah, blah. And then along came Disney, and now suddenly they're making $800 million and $1 billion. They were making $700 to $900 million on their own anyway. Plus, it's all subjective, of course. To me, Sony has made the two best Spider-Man movies. They made Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is to me is the best Spider-Man movie ever. I love that movie. And Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, to me is the second best Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong. I really like Homecoming. I think I like Homecoming more than any of you guys. And I quite enjoyed Far From Home. I really liked Far From Home. I like what's going on there. And look, I want Spider-Man in the MCU under the partnership that everybody was happy with and everybody was making money and everybody was benefiting and we as fans were benefiting. That's what I want. But like you pointed out, Rob, and I like the way you articulated it, this is just something that no company could possibly accept. There's just no way. And I am saddened, to be honest with you, to see the response of my fellow fans online not looking at the big picture, because everybody's just like, well, we love Disney, so even if Disney asks Sony as a part of the new deal, all of your executives have to sacrifice your firstborn children. Go do it.
Seems fair.
Everybody online would go, yeah, Sony should do that so Spider-Man can say. It's like, you got to understand, this is simply a deal that nobody could have accepted. Let me ask you this, Chris, because I have specifically not, even when you came in this morning, I did not ask you your opinion on this because I wanted to hear it now. You're hearing about this as a fan. What's your first response to it?
Initially, I was trying to be Switzerland about it. It's like when your two friends date each other and then break up, and you're like, I don't want to take sides. I don't know. And I could see what Disney was doing before, because that's a lot of IP that Sony's been able to use. Yeah. Tony, Pepper, Happy, the Avengers, the Skrulls. That's a lot of stuff they get access to. So I could see wanting more money. But now it feels like Disney's gone full Thanos. And this is not perfectly balanced. This is not okay. That is a huge ask. And from a business standpoint, you guys are right. It'd be crazy for Sony to embark on a deal like that. I personally am very hurt. I feel personally attacked. This is the first day, if you choose to celebrate it this way, this is the first day of Chrisonica, the Festival of Lit, my birthday week. And what a shitty gift. Spider-Man is my favorite. Spider-Man's my favorite. And Tom Holland is such a good Spider-Man. And I am outraged. How dare all of you? I also want to point out, I don't know if you guys saw this, there's already, because of the hashtag boycott Sony, at which we've got boycott Disney as well, but there is a group on Facebook already that is planning to storm Sony on October 31st, dressed in Spider-Man outfits to get Spider-Man returned to Marvel. And this is so much better than the Storm Area 51. This is amazing.
There's a lot less ground to cover when you storm the gates.
That's true. I'm still outraged that there is this belief amongst the fandom that Sony took him back.
Yeah.
No, this is Disney did this. Sony was perfectly happy with this arrangement. They wanted to keep this arrangement. They were probably even willing to budge. You mentioned the 70. They were even willing to go as high as 70-30, which is a 6 times increase. And
by the way,
Disney's saying no.
That's a great deal. A 70-30
that's a
split.
Deal.
If you're negotiating a contract and they come back to you and you wanted 50, you went from 5%. See, what Disney wants to do is they want to co-finance these films to the tune of they're going to put in 50% of the money. Well, that takes their controlling interest away. But if it's a 70-30 split, that's really great.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a 6 times increase.
But only for Spider-Man movies. You can't have anything else in the Spider-Verse.
I wanted to point one thing out here too. I put this up on because this is interesting. Look, there's a lot of potential ramifications here for what this means for the MCU and whatever. A thought crossed my mind last night, thinking about Spider-Man: Far From Home, and I put up a tweet, and I think it's the most retweeted tweet I've ever put up in my life. But I put up this tweet. I'm going to see if I can bring it up here. I'm not sure that I can. I wrote this. Remember, according to Happy, Tony only sacrificed himself doing the snap because he knew Spider-Man would be there to take care of the world. Whoops. And he ain't there.
No.
Think about that. According to Happy Hogan, the only reason Tony was willing to go through and do the snap because he knew Spider-Man would be there to take care of the world. Bum, 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 bum. So I mean,
I think a lot of people too, though, just didn't read all of the reports.
No, so many people just read headlines and that's all they do.
Yeah.
When I was at Universal yesterday with my friend Megs, and we were just hearing about, it's over a producer credit. And that's all people were posting on Facebook, or all they were posting on Twitter was like, someone's upset because they're not getting a producer credit. They're going to figure it out. And it seemed like Sony was the bad guy from what everyone was saying. But once you read all the reports, guys, it's like any kind of news. You have to read all the sources, and that way you'll know the full story. I mean, don't take our word for it. We're LeVar Barton here. Go figure it out for yourselves.
And look, I hope we find out.
Yeah.
I hope we find out Deadline's wrong.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like Rob's pointed out, Deadline is not like, let's just post whatever rumor we...
Yeah.
No, Deadline's pretty... But,
and it was Michael Fleming who wrote that initial article.
yes. And look, there's still hope. While there's time, there's hope. Because, man, D23 is this weekend.
Do you still get to go, John?
I don't know. I have no idea. After my twit storm and everything, I don't know if Disney's going to rescind my invitation to be at that thing or not.
Disney, I still love you, and I'm so
whatever.
excited to see you.
Yes, Chris, you're going on a pass.
No relation.
So I no relation. all opinions expressed by John Campea are his and his alone. It's going to be an interesting environment at D23. So I'm really hoping they can get something done here. But because the way things stand, it's just untenable for anybody. And I really hope that both Disney and Sony can get together. Listen, let me take a moment here. This is the fireside chat moment. Bob Iger, Tom Rothman. That's Tom Rothman over there, right?
It is Tom Rothman.
I know you both watch this show religiously, and you hang on every word I say. So let me speak to each here clearly. For the last number of years, you guys have been making money hand over fist, working together under the agreement and arrangements that you have. And maybe the agreement and arrangements you've had need to be tweaked a little. Yeah, okay, understandable. But you guys have both benefited so much from this deal you've had with each other. Don't derail it. Don't start making unreasonable demands of each other. Get back together, sit down at a table, and stay in a locked room until you guys come to an agreement. Something that is far more fair than the ridiculousness that Disney's offer, but something a little bit sweeter than the previous deal. I'm sure you guys can come up with something. Please do. It's what the fans want, it's what the industry wants, and it's what you guys need. So please make this work. Please make this work. Anyway, guys, what do you guys think about this whole Sony Disney thing? Do you think there's hope still? Do you think they can pull this out of the fire? I want to know what you guys think. Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right.